Hi, I am in a very strange place and unexpected place. Actually, I am much closer to the North Pole that I could have expected, anticipated in the last few days, where I've been in Italy in a much warmer climate. Where am I right now? I am on the Svalbard Island, which is a place that I didn't even know it existed, and it is halfway through between the North Pole and the Norway. Actually, getting here, it has been really long, although it has been a beautiful trip. We had to take the flight to get to Norway, then we had another 3 hours flight from there to Longyearbyen, and then we had to take a special boat to get here. This is a center that is studying climate change, is studying the way in which the pattern of weather are changing worldwide. And you may ask yourself why a philosopher like me and an expert, or at least of the problem related with the mind and with AI, is here in the ice, in such a cold place, which is much colder than I was expecting it to be. Well, the fact is that I've been working for several years on a theory, on a hypothesis actually, that places the mind in the environment, and that suggests that the mind, that our consciousness is identical with the surrounding environment. So it is a kind of strong externalist theory of the mind. And that's the link between this facility, where they study the environment and the weather and the world, and my theory that works with the mind and with the processes that usually are taken to be only inside the body, only inside the brain. So let me also anticipate that this short talk that I'm giving to you, I will highlight a possible connection not only between consciousness and the environment, but also between AI and future development of AI. What is the connection? Well, the connection is simply that once we put our experience, our consciousness in the world, then we have a different take, a different angle to study all the processes that so far have been located inside the body. So here in the ice, I brought with me from Italy two objects that I always use: a brain and an apple that would not have been able to grow in such a much colder climate. And the question that I'm asking you is, how is it possible that all our experience, all our mind is just inside a brain, is just inside this object? And the answer that I want you to take into consideration is that actually our experience has never been inside such an object. But that such an object, a beautiful, wonderful biological system, is the condition for bringing into existence the reality as we know it. Not the reality as we know it in any idealistic perspective. So not the reality as we know it as though what we see was just a virtual world, but the real external world. So what I am suggesting to you is that at this very moment, because I'm here in this cold climate, because I'm here in this frozen place, my brain right now is one of the conditions that allow this environment to act in a certain way. And because of that, at this very moment, my experience is physically made of the ice, the snow, and all the beautiful natural. See, I'm sorry that right now you can see only my background, only the wall behind me, but from here I can see an incredibly beautiful landscape, an incredibly cold sea that I never thought it was possible. And such an experience of mine is created not inside my brain. I believe that there's a strong ontological and physical sense in which the world itself, the frozen sea I'm just watching at this very moment, is one with my own experience. So the apple that I brought with me is my favorite placeholder, but it just refers to the external world. And so what I see at this very moment is one with myself. So I'm trying to convince you to take into consideration the possibility that the body is not the location of ourself, but the body is just the center, the eye of the hurricane. But we are the hurricane, not the eye, not the spot at the center of such a phenomenon. We are the surrounding environment. So coming here to the Svalbard Island, it has been a way for myself to become one with the North Sea, to become one with the icebergs that I may see here floating. It is an incredible sight. And this has an important suggestion also for AI, because all too often when we study AI, we apply the neurocentric idea, namely the idea that everything that takes place, that everything that is part of our experience is an information process inside a computer, or inside a robot, or inside a brain. I'm just fighting against this idea that everything is inside. And coming here and changing the surrounding environment of my body, bringing my body at the Svalbard Island, is a way to change myself. So, am I conscious because consciousness is a property of my body? No. That goes against the hypothesis I'm working with. I'm suggesting that, on the contrary, I'm conscious because I'm one with the external environment. So it doesn't really matter whether my body is alive or not. Well, it is extremely important for me, because if my body was not alive, it would stop to be the condition for being here. But it's not what I'm made of. I'm not made of living stuff. My body is made of living stuff. And that paves the way to the possibility that we had robots or AI in completely different environment. They would be one with their own surrounding environment. So the point is that this theory that our experience is one with the external world paves the way not only to AI, but also to artificial consciousness, because it breaks the link between being alive and being conscious. It might be possible to be, as in the case of an artificial AI, to have intelligence without being alive, and at the same time to have consciousness without being alive. So, to cut a long story short, at this very moment I'm different from what I was a few days ago when I was in Italy. My body is the same, but I'm not made of my body. My body is the condition to bring into existence a physical world. The physical world that my body brings into existence here, it starts to get really cold, is completely different from the world that my body was bringing into existence in Liguria, in the north of Italy, where I was until a few days ago. My body is the same. My brain is the same. But the world that my body and brain brings into existence is completely different. And likewise, I am completely different. So traveling is a way to change yourself. Not only because you learn new things, but because you become made of something different, of something completely different. So here we are working on a hypothesis that goes against all our more radicated notions. Namely, the idea that we are behind our eyes and between our ears. Contrary to such a hypothesis, I'm making a sort of Copernican revolution. I'm suggesting something that is a complete change, a complete shift in our perspective. I'm suggesting that we are not at the center of the body, but on the contrary, that the body is a kind of proxy, is a kind of shell, is a kind of device that allows to a world to exist and to do things. And so coming here is a way to change our own reality, to change our own experience. And so coming here has changed myself immediately. Not because I needed to learn anything. The very fact that I stepped on this ice changed myself, because at that very moment everything was different. Probably you had that experience. Often we have the impression that once we step out of a plane, we don't know exactly why, but we are different persons. We are not the same as we were at home. Now, it is possible that that impression is a lot more real than we usually think. It's not only a cultural fact, but it is a fact that the world that acts on our body is a completely different world. In order to work this idea, we need to introduce an important concept. The important concept is that of the relative object or the relative world. What do I mean? A very simple notion. I mean that we usually assume that the world is what it is, no matter whether we are there or not. But if we look at science, if we look at physics, we learn a different story. Take into consideration the simplest physical property, velocity. Velocity is relative. That means that if I ask you what is the velocity of an object, you cannot give me an answer unless I tell you relative to which that object is going to move. So we know that there isn't an answer to the question what is the real absolute velocity of an object, because velocity is always intrinsically relative and depending on other objects. The hypothesis here is admittedly quite radical. It is the hypothesis that all physical properties we find in our experience at any moment, the white of the snow, the glassy aspect of the ice, the weight of the object, the colors, the velocity of objects, are all relative properties, but not relative to a subject. That would be idealism. They are relative to a natural reference frame. Which reference frame? Our own body. That's why my world is different from the world of the cameraman, and is different from the world of the scientist that works here digging ice, because they have slightly different bodies. So to change your world, you may act in two different ways. One way is to change your body, and therefore, by changing your body, you change the world that is relative to your body. Just like if you change your own speed, you change the relative speed of all the other cars on a highway. But there's another way, which is a little bit more expensive, which is why we are here at the Svalbard, and it is the possibility to change the external world. And by changing the external world, we change ourselves. That's why it is so important to take care of our environment, to take care of the earth, to take care of climate change. Because if we don't take change of the world, if we don't take care of the world, we don't take care of ourselves. And if the world goes downhill, we will destroy ourselves, because we are not inside our body. And so there's no hope of saving ourselves if we don't save the world, because we are the world. And that's the important thing. That's the important conclusion of my hypothesis. And that's what shows that my hypothesis is not only a philosophical abstract idea, but it is an important hypothesis that will have strong effects on what we are and what we will do and the way in which we will take care of our external reality. So we need to continue to work on this approach, because we need to provide a convincing ontology that may be neutral and may cross the space between AI and human intelligence, and putting them together with an environmental approach to reality. So that's what we are here, and now we will continue to study the relation, the way in which my experience, my own self, has been changed by the fact that I've been transported here on the ice at the Svalbard Island, and we will see in which way my own existential feelings of being what and who I am is going to be affected by the change in the surrounding world. So I will study myself from a philosophical and psychological perspective, And I will study how myself has been changed, has been affected, and that will show that probably I'm not just a brain. I'm not just a ghost inside my brain. I'm not my body. I'm something else. I'm the world that my body brings into existence. And that's what I will try to find out. A little bit surprised. I wasn't, as you can, well, that was quick from the Svalbard. Going there took a lot of time, but getting back was really much faster. Actually, as you can imagine, I wasn't at the Svalbard. I was just in the building next to this one, and I was inside a machine that is able to recreate the climate of any point on the Earth. And a machine that, for me, I'm not a climatologist, I'm really a philosopher, I'm really AI scholar, is extremely interesting. Why? It is extremely interesting for at least 3 reasons. First, it is a wonderful opportunity to test my theory, which is really the theory that I presented. That was not a joke. A theory that suggests that our mind is not inside the brain, is not a property emerging out of the activities of the neurons, but it is one and the same with the environment. The environment is something relative to our own body, just like, as I said, inside this machine. And why it is important, if we can have the video, please. Why it is important? Because usually we think we are independent of the surrounding world. And that's because usually the surrounding world changes slowly. And it is a little bit like the time zone. Before people were able to travel on the Earth, people were unaware that there might be a different time, there might be a different sunlight in different places in the world. Because they were moving so slowly at a snail pace that they couldn't have any evidence of it. But when they started to move with ships and the like, they started to be able to understand that time is relative. Likewise, if you are able, like I've been in the Terra X cube, to change all of your environment just in a split second and to basically step in the environment, the climate of the Svalbard island, then you have a first-person experience that the environment makes you, that you are made by the external world, that you are one with the external world. The other issue, philosophical but also technological and related with AI, is the fact that this machine challenges our beliefs about things such as virtual reality. Why it is important? Because usually we take virtual reality to be something like a technological version of a Cartesian dream, So something that takes place only in a mental virtual world, in a world of pure appearances, pure mental appearances. But let me ask you a question, and then we will get back to the Terra X cube. Have you ever seen a virtual color? No. Because whenever you see a color, a virtual color, maybe because of goggles, maybe because of a computer simulated environment, what you're going to see is always a physical color. So this machine is really interesting for me because it shows that in order to make you have an experience of a different place, basically you need to recreate, to make a physical copy, to have the real stuff taking place, albeit in a limited scale, albeit only in a room, albeit only in that place where I was. But in that place, thanks to the Terra X cube, I really had an experience of a different world. And that's my message to you. There isn't an inner world. There is just the physical world. And we are one with the physical world. If we want to have an experience of something, we need to have that something in the real world. Thank you very much. And I thank you, the organizers, for this opportunity.